Hello Planeswalkers! Andrew here with a new deck tech. It may be a bit late, but we've got some Halloween themed decks to tell you about. And kicking that off is a vampire themed Elenda, the Dusk Rose deck. Now this is a bit of a higher budget deck, so be warned. Elenda herself is a 1/1 vampire knight with lifelink, and whenever another creature dies, she gets a muscle counter. When she dies, you make a number of 1/1 vampires with lifelink equal to her power. So this deck focuses on making tons of creatures, and either letting them die or killing them yourself. Starting off, let's go over the cards that make tokens. Sorin, Grim Nemesis, can grab you extra cards and make vampire tokens. Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, can make vampire tokens as a plus ability. Sorin, Solemn Visitor, can make a 2/2 flying vampire and can even pump your board. Leonin War Leader makes two 1/1 lifelink cats whenever it attacks. Maverin Fane makes a 1/1 lifelink vampire whenever one or more vampires you control attack. Legion's Landing makes a 1/1 vampire on entry, and when you attack with 3 or more creatures, it flips into a land that can either generate a white or get paid into to make a vampire token. For general vampire shenanigans, we've got Adaptive Automaton, who becomes the creature type of your choice on entry and gives the other creatures you control of that type +1/+1. Gifted Aetherborn is a 2/3 Death Touch lifelinker for 2. Nighthawk Scavenger has Flying, Death Touch, and lifelink, and its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among your opponent's graves. The Haunt of Hightower has Flying, lifelink, and causes the defending player to discard on attack, and it gets a +1/+1 counter whenever a card enters an opponent's grave. Vampire Cutthroat is a 1/1 lifelinker that can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Vampire of the Dire Moon is a 1/1 Death Touch lifelinker. And lastly, Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, causes an opponent to lose life whenever you gain life, and he can be paid into to give your entire board lifelink. Now for sack outlets. Since we want Elenda to get swole, we have Krovax the Cursed, who enters with 4 +1/+1 counters, and on your upkeep, you can either sack a creature to put a counter on him, or you remove a counter from him. You can also pay to give him flying. Eradicator Valkyrie is great. She has Boast, which you can pay whenever she attacks, and it has you sack a creature to force each opponent to sack a creature, which altogether gives Elenda 4 +1/+1 counters. Altar of Dementia lets you sacrifice a creature to make a player mill cards equal to that creature's power. Ashnod's Altar lets you sack a creature for 2 colorless mana. Skull Clamp can kill a 1/1 when equipped to it, drawing you 2 cards. Spawning Pit lets you sack a creature for a charge counter, and you can remove 2 charge counters to make a 2/2. Now, what else can you get out of creatures dying? Blood Artist drains an opponent for 1 whenever a creature dies. Butcher of Malakir makes your opponents each sacrifice a creature whenever one of yours dies. Death Greeter gains you life whenever another creature dies. Patron of the Vein destroys a creature on entry, and whenever an opponent's creature dies, it gets exiled, and Patron gives it +1/+1 counter on each of your vampires. Pawn of Ulamog makes a 0/1 Eldrazi Scion whenever one of your non-token creatures dies. Species Specialist has you choose a creature type, and draws you a card whenever one of those creatures dies. Bastion of Remembrance makes a 1/1 entry, and whenever one of your creatures dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain 1. Black Market gets a charge counter whenever a creature dies, and adds a black for every charge counter on it on your pre-combat main phase. Revel in Riches makes a treasure whenever an opponent's creature dies, and if you have 20 or more treasures on your upkeep, you win the game. For defense, you have Vraska, Scheming Gorgon, which can destroy a creature right out of the gate. Archon of Cruelty has an opponent sacrifice a creature or planeswalker, lose 3 life, and discard a card, and then you gain 3 life and draw a card whenever it enters the field or attacks. Kalitas, Bloodsheaf of Get, can be paid into to destroy a creature, and if that creature goes into the grave, you can make a vampire with power and toughness each equal to the destroyed creatures. Massacre Worm is the bane of token strategies, giving all of your opponent's creatures -2/-2 for the turn on entry. Whenever an opponent's creature dies, they lose 2 life. Vona, Butcher of Magan, has Vigilance and lifelink, and you can pay 7 life to have her destroy a non-land permanent, but only during your turn. Witch of the Moors has each opponent sack a creature, unless you return 1 from your grave to your hand on your end step if you gained life this turn. Deadly Relic can be cast for free if Elenda is out, and it exiles a creature. Kaya's Guile lets you pick 2 from having each opponent sack a creature, exile your opponent's graves, make a 1/1 flyer, or gain 4 life. If you pay an extra 3, you can do all 4. Soul Shatter makes each opponent sack their creature or planeswalker with the highest mana value among their creatures and planeswalkers. Vona's Hunger makes your opponent sack a creature, and it has Ascend, and if you have the City's Blessing, it forces them to sack half their creatures rounded up instead. Capital Punishment has everyone vote for death or taxes, and then each opponent sacks a creature for each death vote, and discards a card for each taxes vote. Attrition lets you pay and sack a creature to destroy a non-black creature. Circle of Despair lets you sack a creature to prevent all damage from one source against one target. I put a lot of cards under a blanket support category, and that starts with Bloodline Necromancer, a vampire that resurrects a vampire from your grave when it enters the field. Bloodlord of Vazgoth has Bloodthirst 3, which means it enters with 3 +1/+1 counters on it if an opponent lost life this turn, and it also gives your other vampires Bloodthirst 3. Chancellor of the Dross is a big, expensive vampire that you can reveal from your opening hand to drain each opponent for 3 life before the game even begins. Esper Sentinel draws you a card whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, unless they pay mana equal to Esper Sentinel's power. Geode Golem lets you play your commander from your command zone for free whenever it deals combat damage to a player. Effects like this are helpful since we sometimes want Elenda to die in order to make a ton of vampires, and so we may be casting her from the command zone more often than with other decks. Malakir Bloodwitch has protection from white, and when they enter the field, you drain each opponent equal to the number of vampires you control. This is great if Elenda just died and you have a ton of vampires. Solemn Simulacrum is a classic ramp card, searching you a basic land on entry and drawing you a card on death. Turgrid, God of Fright, steals permanents that your opponents sacrifice or discard. Taste of Karlov doubles up your death triggers and gives your creature tokens vigilance and lifelink. Archaeomancer's Map searches up 2 basic planes on entry and adds them to your hand, and whenever a land enters an opponent's field, if they have more lands than you, you can play a land for free. Blade of the Blood Chief puts a +1/+1 counter on the equipped creature whenever a creature dies, and if they're a vampire, they get 2 counters instead. Commander's Sphere taps for mana of any color. Icon of Ancestry lets you choose a creature type on entry, gives those creatures +1/+1, and you can pay into it and look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and reveal a creature of the chosen type from among them, and add it to your hand, putting the rest on the bottom of your deck. Konda's Banner can only go on a legendary creature, and it gives creatures you control that share a color with the equipped creature +1/+1, gives the same to creatures that share a type with it. Netherborn Altar can be tapped for a soul counter, and you can put a commander from your command zone into your hand and then lose 3 life for each soul counter on Netherborn Altar. Nyx Lotus enters tapped and can be tapped for a color of your choice for mana equal to your devotion to that color. Panharmonicon doubles up ETBs of your creatures and artifacts. Soul Ring is Soul Ring. Vanquisher's Banner has you choose a creature type on entry and gives them all +1/+1, and you can draw a card whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type. Wayfarer's Bauble can be sacked to search up a basic land. Horn Power Stone enters tapped and taps for 2. Diabolic Intent has you sack a creature when you cast it, and it tutors you a card. Conspiracy turns your non-vampires into vampires. Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond go infinite if both are out and you either gain life or an opponent loses life. For lands, we have Bright Climb Pathway, Cabal Stronghold, Command Beacon, Command Tower, Fetid Heath, Godless Shrine, Isolated Chapel, Opal Palace, Path of Ancestry, Phyrexian Tower, Vault of Champions, and Vault of the Archangel. There's also 7 plains and 14 swamps. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know the deck, as I've given, is a little bit expensive, quite expensive actually, so take it as a suggestion more than a template. Hopefully I managed to get across the idea you want to go for when building this deck. Also, I apologize for the second half of this recording. I have had a cold, so that's why I sound a little different. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and maybe subscribe. Leave a comment letting us know what you think. Anyways, as always, have a great day all.